The Lord of the Rings Return of the King movie video game was released in 2003. It is essentially an action hack and slash video game that features the Lord of the Rings characters from the movie license. It was originally developed by EA Redwood Studios for the PlayStation 2 and PC, and was later ported to the GameCube and Xbox by Hypnos Entertainment, with mobile and Nintendo Game Boy Advance versions following, although these versions are not the same as their home console counterparts. The makers of this game had the rights to Peter Jackson's movies only, and did not have the license to base their games off of the books. I currently have access to the GameCube, Xbox, and Game Boy Advance versions of the game, although for the most part, recently I played the GameCube version on the Dolphin emulator instead of the original hardware. This game was my first introduction to what consoles are capable of with true 3D gaming, and was the first game I received for the Nintendo GameCube as an 11-year-old. I had previously played the Two Towers game at my cousin's house on the PlayStation 2. I was so impressed with the title that I spent long hours thinking about playing it while having no access to the game. It wasn't until I got my hands on the GameCube version of the game that my deep wish was fulfilled. This review will be focusing on the main line home console version of the game as opposed to the vastly different Game Boy Advance version, which I have also played. The game features 9 characters in total, the entire Fellowship of the Ring minus Boromir, although Boromir is replaced by his brother Faramir. These include Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, who were featured in the previous Two Towers game. In addition to this, also included are Gandalf, Frodo and Sam, and Pippin, Merry, and Faramir as unlockable characters. After completing the game, however, you can replay any level with any character. The game is level-based, as opposed to being an open-world game, which is common today. It probably features every major fight or war battle from the film of the same name. The mechanics of the game are simple. You play as one of the heroes from The Lord of the Rings, and fight your way through hordes of enemies, as in the case of larger maps, such as the Southern Gate map, which has become a personal favorite of mine during my childhood. The game includes 2-player co-op, which is accessible after the completion of the first mission featuring Gandalf at Helm's Deep. When you first start up the game, you are greeted with a movie that is impossible to skip, and are dropped into the game immediately, playing as Gandalf at Helm's Deep. Already, we get a taste of what the game is like, which is an expanded version of the Two Towers game with more features. It controls pretty much the same as the Two Towers game. As well as this, all of the characters are easy to control because the controls are streamlined. However, there are slight differences between the two kinds of characters, which mostly relate to speed and power. There are essentially 5 kinds of characters in this game: Elf, Dwarf, Man, Wizard, and Hobbit. As said before, each type has the same controls, but the responses, speed, and damage you will do vary from character to character. Also, the Hobbit characters, as well as the Man characters, Aragorn and Faramir, seem to be copy and pasted versions of their type. The dwarf Gimli character makes up for what he lacks in speed with pure power. The elf Legolas makes up for what he lacks in immediate power with speed. The man character Faramir and also the man character Aragorn control much like a more balanced cross between Gimli and Legolas. The wizard Gandalf is similar to the human characters, but with several magical abilities that are used up by projectile ammo. The hobbits, Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin, are overall the weakest characters. You should play as them if you want a real challenge while replaying the game. The controls are simple. Mashing the A button is swift attack, which is a weaker but faster melee attack. You also have the ability to do a fierce attack, which is a slower attack, but it leaves you more vulnerable and also breaks shields and armor. Unlike the swift attack, fierce attack does not also block melee attacks and projectile ammo while you use it. The block button essentially makes you invulnerable to most attacks as long as you repeatedly press it. You also have the ability with all characters to do a physical attack, which has other abilities like knocking down ladders in the minus tier siege level. In addition to these basic abilities, you have a killing move, which defeats enemies automatically who have been knocked down on the ground. You can also do ranged attacks, and every character has a special ability, which is activated by holding the left and right triggers together. The atmosphere of the game at times feels like the movies, but at other times I'm taken out of this experience by things that never happened or didn't belong in the films. One of the biggest examples of this is the Battle of Pelennor Fields mission, where Aragorn and Legolas fight off the Witch King in the air to save Merry and Éowyn. Although this could have been done well, I see it as a missed opportunity. Another similar shortcoming was the Battle of Black Gate, which is the second to last chronological mission. Instead of coming with a huge army against the hordes of Mordor, Aragorn has what looks to be a small camp of at most 15 people. However, this is probably more related to a hardware limitation than to an actual game flaw. Through the game, you'll experience graphical glitches, such as orcs walking straight through the Black Gate without having it fully opened. This becomes more apparent after you complete the game, when characters are actually missing from cutscenes when you play as a character that wasn't actually in that part of the movie. In addition to this, there seems to be no lip animation when the characters are talking, which was a flaw seemingly shared by the game produced by the same studio, The Lord of the Rings: The Third Age. Through the game, your character will level up and gain new abilities, which mostly increase the damage you do, but also include special moves by a combination of buttons. The most notable and powerful of these is Swift Attack, which is mashing the A button 3 times. This is one of the best because of how easy it is to execute. Another more difficult one to pull off is the attack, which involves parrying first and then hitting the kill move button, which automatically brings the character into perfect mode. The game consists of a skill meter, which increases each time you get a kill but decreases when hit. The higher the meter is, the higher your kills will be rated. The highest of these ratings is perfect mode. Having higher kill counts with better ratings increases the upgrades you can buy. Although upgrading does seem to be a fast process, this depends on your playstyle. Near the end of the game, Legolas gets an ability to fire 2 arrows at once, which decimates most enemies on the battlefield, similar to Gandalf's ranged attack fully upgraded. In my opinion, both of these abilities are overpowered. For example, Gandalf's ranged attack at the end of the game can kill a troll with 1 hit. Both Legolas's and Aragorn's endgame ranged attacks should have been nerfed, at least slightly. There are various enemies. The majority of the enemies are either archers, foot soldiers with shields, or soldiers without shields. The ones without shields or armor can be easily cut through with minimal effort by mashing the A button attack. Other enemies include armored orcs and other enemies in boss fights, some of which require specific strategies to defeat. For example, Shagrat is only defeated by throwing spears at him. Other enemies are susceptible to most attacks. These bosses include the Mouth of Sauron, who is only featured in the extended edition of the films, the King of the Dead, Shelob, the Witch King, and finally, but surprisingly difficult, Gollum. You also fight against larger enemies such as trolls and Mumakil. The troll animations seem very close to that of the films, while other characters might seem less realistically moving at times. One of the most notable aspects of this game is its ability to take characters in film clips and quickly transform them into the game clips or vice versa. For example, when the Ents destroy the dam at Isengard, it quickly transforms into a movie scene in a transitional way. The game has many of the actors from the movies as voice actors, although some of the lines seem kind of cheesy because they rehash lines from the movies in new ways. It seems like writers could not write any new lines but focused on the source material. Notably absent are Orlando Bloom as Legolas and Viggo Mortensen as Aragorn, respectively. Although I couldn't tell the difference between the new actor and the old actor. Having covered the technical aspects of the game, I now want to focus on why I love this game. As a child, I had no internet access and limited access to entertainment. Therefore, a lot of the same stories were told and read over and over again. This is why The Lord of the Rings was such an important aspect of the culture to me. Its grandiose sense of good versus evil was exactly the kind of story I needed to read at the time. I had been given all the books and read them all in 3rd grade, which was a few years before I had played the games. By this time this game came out, I was fluent in the Lord of the Rings lore, and this allowed me to experience things about the series I would never have been able to experience otherwise. Even though the game focuses mostly on the violent aspects of the movies, it still holds a place in my heart today because it was my first glimpse at an immersive experience and what video games could offer and how they could expand storytelling.